Hey everyone, this is Brandon, Kurt, and Monty with Cybersecurity for You. This is episode number 17. What we're going to cover today is the vulnerabilities of online shopping. Monty, how are you doing this morning?
Fantastic. We had a pretty good weekend. Took my typical 5-mile walk around this very nice wooded, shaded area in Ventura, California. Perfect weather conditions. Then I rested up Sunday. Reviewed a few notes for the show. Now I think we're rolling right along. What about yourself?
I did the same thing. Actually, there's in Ontario, there's called the Bruce Trails, which is a long trail. I think it's like 32 kilometers long. Like it's pretty long. So, and I don't know what that converts into miles, but it's a pretty long trail. And I did a 3-kilometer hike over the weekend just to get out in the wilderness, get out near, in nature, because I know sometimes us IT people are always in front of electronics or in front of computers or multiple screens. So it's good to disconnect.
Right. How long did it take you to do the kilometers?
We hiked it. So it was a lot of terrain up and down. I think it was about 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. I'm putting in about 2 hours, for my 5-mile walk. And I think 2 hours is an hour and a half. 2 hours is pretty good. Definitely, that'll keep us in shape. Hopefully. Oh
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I'm learning more and more that I got to keep moving because again we sit so much with our jobs. Yeah. So to when it's a nice weather, nice day out, to go out and enjoy it, to be there. So and I know with our businesses being entrepreneurs, you have that flexibility to schedule that in. First, if you're working at an office 9 to 5. You only can do that before work or after work.
That's one of the conveniences, definitely, to make sure that we take advantage of that. Because a lot of people are working towards getting to this point, and then I think we need to remind them. Eventually you can be mobile, you can be on the trail, you can be in even who knows, in the gym on a cruise ship or something, and figure out make it happen.
Exactly, and that's why for us when we were talking about like cybersecurity and how to protect your business, that helps you to be more secure, then you gain more freedom if you do the foundation first, right? Versus doing it after and having to do all the footwork and, the policies, procedures, and setups, on the fly, on the go. If you do the sweat equity now up front, you're able to protect your business. And I think one of the things that was prevalent for me was last night I did a talk at a Microsoft store.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it was a local Microsoft store, and I did a talk about cybersecurity for small businesses, and it was interesting. What I was finding is a lot of small businesses were coming out and saying a couple of things that I've heard before, but it was good to see it right in person and answer those concerns. Is first and foremost, I'll never get hacked. I'll never get compromised. Why do I need to worry about this? And that was one of the things I was okay. Second, what is encryption? Right. So one guy, unknowing to him, was more talking about ciphertext. He said, I had this key I set up, so I knew if I went through the alphabet and I went -1 for every letter that I chose, right? So I chose 1, I'd go up and down. I knew that, so I knew I could pick from there. And I was like, okay, but that's ciphertext. That's not encryption. You'd put that into an encryption. He was like, oh, if I'm just not encryption. I said, no, that's ciphertext. That's setting up a code for yourself. Right? Exactly. And what happens is that still, if someone finds out that trigger, they can decrypt your ciphertext. Right?
Wow.
And I said encryption is a little bit higher than that, and just doing that. And I said it's a form of encryption. Ciphertexting is doing that, but you got to look at how to encompass that into a box. Right? So it's encrypted. It's into a box that's secure. And he was like, oh, and what's forms? What can I do? And I said, like, even simple things as WinZip or 7-Up, I think was one, just to zip it, and then you have an encryption where it goes up to 128 or 256-bit encryption.
Oh, yeah.
So things like that. But you kind of hear what people are saying in the industry, that it's like, I don't have to be concerned, and I like to hear what like Evan has to say about this, because I know Evan just jumped in. Like, does he have concerns about security, or does he feel it's not a concern for him or his business? And I think I'm finding more and more, the more I get up to small to medium-sized business, it's second thought. It's something in the background. It's not that important. Whereas we know, doing research and hearing about cybersecurity and hearing about like attacks and hacks,
Yeah.
The small businesses are the ones that are getting hit the most because they're not preventing it. They're not putting in security in place, so they're vulnerable. What do you think, Monty?
Yeah, I think you have to have this discussion because, as you pointed out, what we think that is the proper measures that are being implemented and in most companies or something, it's not necessarily true. I think we really have to talk to people and see where they are. What do you know? How does ciphertext compare to actual encryption? And again, it really comes down to best practices. What is the industry doing, and what are some of the standards, if any, that we have? Because we should have minimum standards, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of times we don't. People just have these haphazard solutions, and some of them will work, and a lot of them won't work at all. And as a matter of fact, it'll end up compromising everything that you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I think one of the things that I talked about last night is that the areas of security that people don't think about. You look at your personal security, the physical security, your business security, your staff and vendors and suppliers and clients.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Your family, your friends, like all these areas of domains of security, people kind of go, okay, I'm going to focus on business security, right? But they don't think about, personal security. So they're posting all this stuff on social media about themselves and where they're going. But then that person can be socially engineered, at which at the event last night, we talked about a CEO and the actual owner of the company got a call. This hacker said, hey, I'm from Dell. You have a problem with your system. I need to get access right now.
Of course.
Oh my God, it's Dell. Of course. Yeah, you can have access. What do you need me to do? And they got access to the whole company.
Crazy.
Right? And this is a CEO, Harvard graduate, well-educated, and she got, socially engineered because she just assumed it was someone from Dell, and she didn't validate. She didn't have security awareness, and it went straight through, right? To the point where they had access to her system, they had access to the IT system, and they went straight through the company. And it cost her tens of thousands of dollars to recover from that.
Incredible. Yeah. I think we've really made a tremendous amount of resources available by way of these blab videos and the recorded sessions. So when you guys get the opportunity, make sure you go back and take a look at the specific topics and then drill down into the actual blabs and take your time and go over them, because we're covering a lot of information, but actually the resources embedded and that are incorporated into the blabs as well, and that brand is making available to you is going to really give you a very good idea in terms of more specifically, what do we need to do? Because we're looking for, as hackers, I'm not saying me personally, but as hackers are looking for any weak link in the chain. And once that's identified, then that's what you go after. Now, this is the good news, you guys. We got more victims, but we got fewer losses taking place as compared, when we talk about vulnerabilities and online shopping. I'll give you some numbers. There are more than 13 million Americans fell victim to identity fraud last year. That's up 13%. That's up 3% from 2014, and the second highest number in the past 6 years. Losses decreased, however, by 6% to only $15 billion. Okay, the lowest amount since 2010. Overall, identity thieves have stolen $112 billion in the past 6 years. Roughly $35,600 per minute, or enough to pay for 4 years of college in just 4 minutes. Okay, so we got good news and we got bad news. Okay, the numbers are still way, way higher than they need to be. $112 billion is ridiculous. There's no way that we should have any industry that's somehow willing to let the bad guys get away with, $112 billion over whatever amount of time, 3, 4, 5 years. It doesn't matter. It's that pot of money is too significant, and it's too attractive, and it's too compelling to be avoided. What do you think about that?
And this is the scary part, and I like to hear what Evan and I know I think Nicholas just jumped in. I'd like to hear what they think about like online shopping right now.
Exactly.
Where the state is of where they feel the state of it is right now, because what I find is online shopping, when you look at companies and marketing companies and businesses, they're like, oh my God, the convenience to be able to shop from your iPhone, from your simple solution, to be able to do 3 clicks and be able to get in and be able to do the shopping. Well, what happens is if there's not encryption, there's not authentication, there's not a form of security there, you're potentially vulnerable. And then if the company doesn't have a terms of service, right, of how they're going to protect your data, how they're going to protect your information, what happens is you can potentially be vulnerable now to a compromise. And that might mean that, worst case scenario, they get hacked, right? And all your information shared out, your credit card information, your personal identifiable information. Or what happens is you don't know, they might share it, right? They might share it to someone else. So I'm just going to bring Nicholas in, see what he has to share here.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Hello.
How you doing, Nicholas?
Pretty good.
All right.
So
Cool.
What's your thoughts on this?
So I've noticed what's been happening is that the typical non-technical consumer, what they'll do is they'll go to a grocery store or Walmart and they'll buy a gift card or a prepaid card and then use that online.
Oh, okay.
And there's another thing too. Banks have a system, some of them at least, where you can generate a temporary credit card ID, usually per transaction or per vendor, and that helps protect. But then what ends up happening, and this is kind of really ironic, is people were going to Target to buy the cards, and then Target got hacked. So you ended up getting hit anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because you used your credit card to buy the Target card that you were trying to protect yourself, and they got hit.
Yeah.
Right. So, and this is why, like, when we're talking about security, one of the things that I recommend and kind of going through it is first to do the research, right? Do the research on the company that you're looking at purchasing through. Right? What's their level of security? Are they using HTTPS on their browsing? Right? So you look at this, it's secure encryption. So what happens is as you're transferring bank information, credit card information, PayPal information, it's all encrypted versus someone sniffing the network or maybe eavesdropping can potentially pick that up and making sure that, the big stores are doing that. But when you look at the smaller ones, maybe if you're looking at a membership site, an online course, are they doing that? Are they secure? Next, is the store, has some sort of logo or information about their purchasing? Is their purchasing secure? Have they validated? Yes, we use PayPal secure shopping. Like, do they have that? And do they validate it that now it's a little bit more secure because they've taken that level of security? Ask and find out if your information is shared. What's up, Nicholas?
So that's something that, a typical consumer wouldn't even know how to verify it. For example, the reason why I know that people were going and buying the cards at the store was because my stepmom was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even really know how to use a computer. They were walking to the library and doing it there.
True. And I mean, like I said, I was doing a talk at Microsoft and there was all different levels of people, to senior citizens to young entrepreneurs. And what happens is, what I believe is, it's up to us as security people to go out, start talking about it, because you're right. I mean, I had a 15-minute debate of someone talking about how they do their financial banking at Starbucks.
Wow.
Right? They go to Starbucks and they do their financial banking as they have their latte.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, okay, do you find that secure? Well, yeah, Starbucks, why wouldn't they be secure? And then we went through the conversation, but they didn't know. Right? And I think it's up to us as security professionals, all of us that are out there, to have the conversation, to share this information. Because, again, it's one of those things that I find that banks are not telling people, companies are not telling them, because, again, companies don't want to tell you, because if I publicize that how many breaches I've had or how vulnerable we are, you're not going to want to shop with us. You're not going to want to do business with us. So it's up to us to kind of say, you know what, do us as consumers have the power of how we spend our dollars to make sure that companies, and this is the one thing I saw from Woody Harrelson this week, he was talking about how we spend our dollars will change the company's mindsets. If we know a company's not secure and we stop shopping with them, they're going to change their policies. They're going to change their system and go, okay, hey, we need to be more secure, because people are going to our competitors that now are more secure because they feel safer. Right? So I think it's up to us as consumers to kind of say, okay, you know what? Hey, are you secure? Okay, how? Let me know how you are secure. What do you do to help protect me? I don't think a lot of consumers take that that opportunity to ask a question because you're more thinking about the benefits, the convenience, the features. Oh my God, I'm getting this new TV. Yeah, it's going to have 3D and it's going to have this and it's a wide screen, all that, and it connects to the internet and does all the great things. Okay, perfect. Put it in my shopping cart. But you don't think, okay, hold on. What's the type of encryption? What does it connect to? Is it WPM, like on my network or Wi-Fi access, or do I have to have a cable, which is a little bit more secure? How is the information shared on the TV? We don't ask that questions. I remember being at Starbucks, and I think we talked about this a week or two ago, and I was asking about like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices, and the salesperson was just shocked. He was like,
"Oh,
what?
yeah.
What do you mean? You can hack these?" I said, "Here," and I showed him, like, go on YouTube right now as we're sitting here. And he's like, "Oh my God, I've sold 12 or 14 devices this week, right? I never knew they're going to be potentially be hacked. I feel bad." I'm like, that's what it's up to you to educate yourself. And I think that's what we're talking about with online shopping. It's now up to our consumers to get a little bit more information of what they're actually buying, purchasing, and the process they're going through when they're purchasing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think we're learning a lot. Nicholas brought up a very good point. I want to elaborate on that. And because as I said, I'm a merchant, right? And I'm finding out that there are some, there's more things that we can do. The credit card is a very good instrument, as Brandon pointed out. If I use my credit card, provided that I don't register it with a company that's going to immediately get hacked into, that's one, but that's another issue, right? But provided that my bank, for instance, allows me to get either use that credit card online, because we do get protections from credit cards. The things I have to this is something I have to tell a lot of my customers. You're going to be protected. There's a good chance that you're going to be limited substantially as far as your liability is concerned when you go online. Maybe you'll pay $50. A lot of times you can get that waived if there's a problem with your online transaction. So you get limited liability. And then some of my customers have taken it upon themselves to register a certain card for online shopping. Okay. Not every card needs to be used for online and offline shopping. Sometimes you can have a dedicated card. So when that card gets compromised, you can cancel that card or trace those transactions back. Even when you do purchases online, a lot of times it's easier to understand that there's one card and I need to track those transactions up until I get those products. Because a lot of times we go here, we go there, and everywhere else we go shopping, right? And we kind of forget, where all the different places were that we went shopping. And goods and services may be shipped out, maybe they're not shipped out, right? But if we can get a handle on all the different sites, make sure we use one card, so we know that we can trace those transactions back and find out, specifically from those merchants, and sign up for accounts, you guys. If a merchant has an account where you sign up and you get a chance to look at the order history, get the tracking information, and find out what is the status of those orders at any given point in time, then you're holding them accountable up until you get that particular product. And then after you get the product, of course, then you can actually go back and make sure you save those receipts, first of all, so that if there's a problem, you can work it out with the merchants. Not every transaction is fraudulent because there's a breakdown. Sometimes there's miscommunication, and you can go back and take a look and say, look, you charged me for overnight. I asked for ground. You sent me to something a little bit different than what I thought. And maybe you can work it out. If you can't work it out, then you start to escalate it and work with the system, and they'll do their best to take care of your problem.
Exactly. We're talking about the credit card companies and why it's good to use, credit card, PayPal account, something along that line, is you can restrict the limits too, right? You can restrict the limits. There is insurance on the shopping as well. And one thing that Monty said, and I agree, is like you track it, you log it, you go through your logs. So if you go onto your online, banking, or you have your invoices that once a month. Now, I recommend you do it weekly. If you're doing a lot of online shopping, you go and you look at your history. What's your log? And this is any security person will say, you always want to access your logs, right? If your activity log. So if you're going through your banking on your online banking, go through that at one account, that Visa, that PayPal, and just see what happens, because you'll see that, I shopped at this account, this place, and this place, and all of a sudden you see this hockey stick go that you're shopping all these other places. You're like, whoa! Now you can call the company, you can engage them right away and say, hey, I think my account's been compromised, right? And I need you to take a look at it and see how we can work it. And then if you have insurance, a lot of the times they'll recover it. They'll say, you know what? Yes, we'll do an investigation. We'll cover the finances because I'm in Canada. I can see that you're shopping in Russia. yeah, that we can see that it's not you, and they can do that. And that's what Evan was saying here was I had a client of mine got hacked from Russia. They made a transfer of small amounts of 130 countries from the accounts to total amount of $25,000.
Wow.
So you look at that. That's why I said like have restricted limits. And the other thing is to add on to what Monty was saying about the accounts, have your Visa on a separate account. A lot of the banks, we talked about this the other week, is a lot of the banks have a profile, a banking profile. So you have your checking, you have your savings, you have everything, your investments, your mortgage, all in one profile. To go to the bank, and I've confirmed this with several banks now, they'll let you create a separate profile that you can log in, user access, that you have that account. So if it does get compromised and someone gets that deep, yeah, they only get access to the Visa. They only get access to online banking that you maybe have like a $500 or $1,000 limit, and you only get compromised that much, which then can be recovered, right? And covered by the banks. They're okay to cover that. But like we're seeing the amounts of $25,000, that's a huge investment. That's a huge investment for the bank, and now they're going to see criminal activity and so forth. But you want to have it as small. If it is compromised, as a small compromise that you can recover quickly from. So if you have that separation when you're doing online banking to protect yourself, it's a better way to do it. And that's the one thing that people do with PayPal. I've seen that where people have the PayPal account and they set it up directly that it pulls from their debit, so from their checking account. So have all that in your online shopping profile. That's what it is, and that's all. Your limit is maybe $1,000, and that's all you do. And then you transfer from one account to another to put the funds back up so you can do your online shopping. And that's how you divide that separation and keep a level of security, because now for a hacker, they have to hack all the way through. The more deeper they have to go, the harder it is, the less they're going to do it, because they want convenience. They want to be able to hack someone easily.
Let me ask you a question, Nicholas. I heard that it may be. Go ahead.
So I like what you both are saying. I think a key here is what I'm taking away is getting information. One, the consumer needs to be aware of what the vendor or the store or wherever you're buying from, what they do in their security practices. The other side is information of how to do their own security practices.
Okay, definitely. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the way that I look at that is there's different kinds of people. They're all going to be at different levels of their acclimation to technology, like different skill sets and that kind of thing. The interesting thing about the buying gift cards at the store is that it does that limit automatically. If you buy a $50 gift card, you're only going to burn $50.
Exactly, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question before I forget, Nicholas.
At different levels, which is kind of interesting.
Right. Let me ask you a question before I forget. What do you do typically when you shop online? What are some of the precautions that you take if you're shopping with a new merchant, for instance, and you're trying to make sure that they're okay? What are some of the things that you can share with us that you do?
I just had 2 bank accounts, and I'd only use one bank account online.
Okay.
And I would transfer money to that bank account. So the worst thing that would happen is it would hit 0 and then just decline the charge.
Exactly. Okay.
And then I also used, I think it's Mint. Mint, you can set it up to have you have like a email when your balance is low.
Right. Okay. Alerts.
Information to me as opposed to have to keep going out and looking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. That's a good point. Very good. Anything else?
No, that was just about it. I never really did a lot of purchases. Usually it was like one big purchase for a computer or something every once in a while. So I just throw the money in the secondary account, and that would be enough for me.
Let me ask you a question. What amount of emphasis do you, if at all, do you place on doing reviews, looking at customer ratings, looking at information about profiles of companies? Does that figure into any of the analysis that you do to figure out whether or not a company's any good at all, like Yelp, maybe BBB, anything along those lines?
I don't use any sites like that per se. I know I was looking at the Google Wallet certification.
Okay.
Like, the company had that from Google. I had dug into what Google looked into. So I basically had Google do the work for me and just ended up trusting what Google was doing.
Like a Google review? Or
there's like a Google certified
wallet
retailer or something like that.
Okay, I see what you mean. I got it. Okay, Cool.
So when they sign up for the account to be a merchant, right, they go through a verification process.
Oh, with Google individually.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like PayPal, Google Wallet. I think Apple has it as well. They have to go through a verification process that they have the right security. They have the process they do all that. And then what happens is then Google validates that, you know what? Yes, we certify that this company is, you know, someone you should be shopping with.
Well, I just want to throw out there real quick. You guys take advantage of the Better Business Bureau as well, just in case. If I'm not certified directly with someone like a Google or an Amazon or something, maybe there's information with the BBB. Maybe if you want, maybe you want to take a look at Yelp. You know, do I have any reviews on that site? In addition to just do a Google search and put review at the end of the merchant's name. You know, and a lot of times if I've rated a bad experience or good experience for that matter, a lot of times it will show up. I've found a lot of information, very useful information about certain companies that I was going to do business with or whatever. And I made a good decision. I was able to make a better decision after looking at reviews. So sometimes you never know what you can find by doing an independent analysis with some of these other third-party services as well.
Exactly, because I think, and to add to that, Monty, is that as you do research, and I wrote this on the site, is as you do research on their websites, their comment sections, their social sites, their Google, their forums, everything like that, you'll start to see a trend. Right. And if you see, you know, people are going, "Oh my God, thank you so much. This has been a great experience," all that. Then you know, it's a good company. They're doing, you know, good customer service and they're protecting it. If you all of a sudden see, "Oh my God, I never got my order. You double billed me." You know,
yeah, exactly.
Then you have to kind of say, "Okay, hold on. Is there a problem?" And you have to do a little bit more research on that to see if that's the right company that you want to start doing online shopping with. Because if everyone's having a problem or a large percentage are having a problem, you might get caught up in that. Now, do you want the headache? Do you want to have to go through your credit card, your company, try to get a reimbursement, go through that?
Right.
Versus maybe you can find it from another company that now is a little bit more secure and more protected, that now people have a better experience with. And that's what we're talking about, kind of like the online shopping for consumers, is to be able to be more educated on your shopping purchases and your process. Because then what happens is it's a better experience for you. That you don't kind of have that experience where, "Oh, I went shopping, it sucks. You never go online because every time I went on, I got hacked or something happened." Well, that's not the case. It just maybe the company that you've tried to purchase from didn't have the right process place, didn't have the right security policies, weren't thinking about security, and they got compromised, which now you got affected by it. So having the knowledge now, and this is why we're doing these, these episodes, is to help share this information so people kind of go, "Okay, what do I do?" And like we're talking about, do the reviews, go on Google and type in, Best Buy reviews. Or if you're trying to do like, you're buying a motherboard, a hard drive, a TV reviews, Sony, whatever the model is, review, and start seeing what people, are doing, where to purchase, put that into Google, then go onto their social sites, the companies that you're trying to do, social sites, and look at the comments, right, on the left-hand side where people are trying to, message the company saying, "Hey," and see what they're doing. I know it's a little bit more work, but again, when you're doing bigger purchases online, if you're doing something that's smaller, you still got to be careful. But when you do bigger purchases, I mean, you have more potential to be compromised, especially if you're spending a lot of money online. You're spending $500, $1,000, $5,000 online. You got to be more mindful of your security practices. And then one thing I looked at is looking over the return policy. Something that people don't do is their terms of service and looking at their return policy to see what their policy is. Because you don't want to do like point of sale where you buy it and that's it, and now you have a problem trying to get your money back if something happens, right? Strong passwords, making sure you have a strong password policy if they're asking you to set up an account. A lot of these merchants ask you to set up an account. Username and password, you can go back in so you can track your order. So making sure you have a strong password. And that password policy is set that it's only for that site. Where I know a lot of people when they do shopping, they go, "Oh, I'm on Amazon, I'm on this, I'm on Best Buy, I'm on, the store." It's the same username and password for all the stores. So what I recommend is that what people do is if you go for Best Buy, you have a Best Buy username and password. You have an Amazon, you have an Amazon username and password. And it's completely separate. So if you ever get compromised, they can't go through your online systems very easily.
I know with the social aspect, it depends a lot too on the kind of site. Because when you're on eBay or Craigslist, you're doing a sale and a transaction directly with the other person. So
Right.
I found the best way to handle that is to go through and not find the good reviews and not find the bad reviews, but find the reviews where a problem happened and see how the other person resolved it. Did they work through the issue? Were they helpful? Because even though they might have maybe not like 5 stars, they might have 3 stars. If they're being proactive and working with the customers, that still might be a better experience than somebody who's never responding and not interacting. And
yeah, and I think that's good. And sometimes what you'll see is, and correct me if I'm wrong, on eBay and all that, you'll see the ranking of the actual seller, right? And how many sales they have done. If they have 100 or 500 sales and they have good rankings, then they're a good seller. If they're maybe 1 or 2, you kind of have to be more cautious of, what's the potential. I'm not saying not do it, just be a little bit more cautious, protect your sale, go through PayPal or something. So if the sale doesn't go through or something happens, that they can, transfer the money back. So different ways of just sending them a money or cash, right? Where it can be a lot more problems, where if you go through more of a secure purchasing, right, process, that then what happens if something happens, you can get that money back. So I agree with Nicholas. Yeah, you want to kind of look and do the research on the forums and on the sites that they have, and you see their history, right, whatever that may be. And then
Brandon, I was going to say I read Ann Burns' question, Brandon, and I just want to phrase that so we can address it. What do you think about certificates, locks, and certifications? Thanks for jumping in, Nicholas, and anyone else. Please come in, because we want to hear what you guys are doing. What do you feel about these ideas? How are you implementing secure online safety in terms of how when you buy online? But Anna wants to know more about. Anna's talking about browsers and certificates and such.
So yeah, when you have to get a certificate authority. So you become like a SSL or TLS, and you have a secure certificate. It's a lot better to have, especially when you're, and I actually recommend it that you do have it if you are a merchant, because what happens is that means that the information that people are transferring to you is going through secure browsing, which they call IPsec. So, anyone that's setting up an e-commerce store or some sort of purchasing needs to look at HTTPS or a secure, socket layer of transferring, because what happens is that data is being now transferred from the individual, right, to, the merchant securely in an encrypted format. So what happens is someone's sniffing the network or someone's eavesdropping, that they potentially can't grab that banking information and then use it. And Burns says, simply submit the application on behalf of the merchant along with the list of measures that are required. Once those measures are met, the merchant account is approved and set up. The merchant is free to set up the payment gateway shopping cart. So, and then do you have, and this is something I ask you, and do you have a checklist of something they need to do, like actions they need to take when they're setting up their merchant account? Because I think for me, like as a security professional, I would want them to kind of go, yes, have you formed a level of encryption? How is your website security? Is your website security up to par? Do you have security? Have you gone through proper measures to secure your website? Right? Because you might have the merchant account, and this is where some people don't realize that. You might have the merchant account secure, but your data is stored in the database on the website. So someone goes to the back end of the website, hacks through there, and gets access to the database. Right? And if the database is not encrypted, the database is not secure, now you have an issue.
But that's one thing that we have to contend with online accounts in general, because the PCI policies really, they should state specifically what we need to do as merchants and how do we protect the customer information and such. But what I'm finding out, unfortunately, you guys, is that it's easier said than done. In other words, everyone is supposed to protect the customer information. Everyone is supposed to implement policies that dictate exactly what we're going to do with the customer information and such. We're supposed to have a protocol or a template, for instance, for the return policies and such. But it's almost impossible for certain credit card processors to go out onto every single website on the internet and say, look, everyone's complying, everyone's meeting expectations and such. What usually happens, unfortunately, is you go to a website And you, as a consumer, you have to ask the critical questions. You have to make absolutely sure that you understand, am I making more money off of shipping than as compared to the product itself? In other words, am I charging you excessively? And as Brandon pointed out, what are the other customer experiences like? When they've done business with me. And then one thing I'm learning, and I want to pass this along to you guys. Unfortunately, that merchant processing system overall is not really really as secure and safe and effective as it should be. One example, we got this system called AVS, address verification system. It means that when you come to my website and you make a purchase, I should be able to verify your name and address, phone number, whatever it is, all this information. A lot of this should be automatically done because of their network itself, because of the relationship with the banks, with the merchant processors, with the credit card issuers, etc. All of that really should be seamless. But guess what? It's not. Okay. A lot of times systems don't talk to each other. Maybe the transaction take place domestically in the United States or maybe it doesn't. Maybe the customer is outside the United States. And if the systems aren't talking to each other, guess what's going to happen? I may not even know if Brandon's information has been stolen or compromised, or is not even accurate or not, or whatever. So yeah, a lot of times we have to take it upon ourselves to really double check and triple check these things for ourselves. And that's where these particular sessions come in handy, because I've only been doing this for 20 years. And I've been working with a lot of different transactions, and believe me, I have to do a lot of the footwork myself, because the big Bank of Americas and the Citibanks and the Wells Fargos, they don't always do everything that they're supposed to be doing. They're more interested in aggregate numbers, lots of volume, lots of transactions, and then after the fact, that's when they start to address the issues if there's a problem.
So I'd like to go back to Ann's comment here and just ask her a question. Your checklist, would you like to share it? Because, the things I like to ask for yourself, Ann, is on the purchasing side and the merchant side, I'm sure you're doing security, but what about on their website? Is there a patch management that's included into that questionnaire? Are they patching their site? Are they updating their site on a regular basis? Is that part of your checklist to make sure there's a level of security? Because I find with merchants, and I'm not saying this as Ann, but I find with other merchants, they look at the level of encryption of the data being transferred. Look at from point of the customer to the point of sale, but they don't look at the data storage after the fact, right? And where it's stored on the website, what's the location, how is the website maintained, where's the data stored. So I think with merchants now, they need to take that extra level, the ones I've talked to, that extra level of security to kind of go through and say, you know what? Yeah, that's great. You have the encryption up to that point, but what about to the storage point? Where's the data stored? How is that protected? Is your website always updated and maintained properly? Do you have a maintenance properly? Because I know for myself, I've talked to my web developer. We were just talking this morning, and this week we have another 6 websites that have been hacked, right? And it's only like Tuesday morning, and we got 6 new websites that he's working on right now that have been hacked, that are companies that are, oh yeah, I have security, I've done all that, but they got compromised. So we know websites are getting compromised more and more, and it's increasing. The question is, when you're going through a merchant system and setting up it, are you going from the consumer to actually the ongoing maintenance, right to the end, right? Because I know merchants sometimes only go to the point of sale and making sure that information is secure at that point, but they don't look at the storage and what's happening after the fact.
Well, that's critical. If I don't have secure storage of my information, and trust me, everyone has their own ideas in terms of how they store and how they keep that information safe. We have the iClouds, we have the Dropboxes, we have you name it. Some of them are consumer grade encryption or whatever. Some of them are enterprise grade, and some are not. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think we still have yet to make sure that we have certain standards that maybe Department of Homeland Security can approve of. And I think ultimately this is what we need to make sure of, that there are some industry standards that the government maybe is setting some minimum criteria for what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Okay, not to say we're going to rely upon the government exclusively, but we need to have some minimum criteria, because I think the problem is right now everyone has some very good ideas in terms of how they handle this critical information, but at the same time, I'm not quite sure whether or not the minimum standards are enough to keep the bad guys out and to keep the information safe.
So here, look, this is what Anne's saying. I don't get into this part of the setup. So you can kind of hear right now, and this is what I'm saying. I'm not faulting Anne. Anne's probably doing a very good job, but there's a certain limit where they stop, where banks stop, where merchants stop to say, oh, we've done our part. So they're not looking at the full security practice, which is not their issue. I mean, but it's something that we as security experts and people that are security mindful now need to start to think about, you know what? I need to go that extra step. I need to protect my clients. I need to make sure they're educated to go that extra, 1 quarter that they might not be knowing or know how to do. And I need to go through this education process to educate them on the potential vulnerabilities, the potential threats that are out there, and how they're going to protect themselves on that last 1 quarter. Because like as Anne's saying, with the merchant's account, they might say, oh, we do only up to this point, and the liability is up to there. After that, it's up to the company. They have to do everything else in that. Well, what happens is, here's where the problem was the merchant gets now caught up in this, is now say that company gets compromised. So now what happens is the consumer goes back to the merchant saying, hey, you failed me. The company failed me and the merchant failed me because you're supposed to be secure. Why is my data? They might not know the process, but they're going to go back to the merchant and say, you said you were secure. Now my data, my personal identifiable information, my credit card information is out on the internet. Someone compromised me. How could you do this to me? And that's what I'm saying. When we look at the liability now, the liability extends now to a collaborative effort between the business and the merchant to work together to provide a full security solution.
And another thing is, Anna's making a very good point, and I'm glad she's really participating and allow us to shed a lot of light on this particular area. Because, see, when you initially set up an account, you may go through a checklist and you may have everything perfect because you want to get that application, right? But then unfortunately, sometimes, you get lazy, right? One thing, for instance, could be your security certificate. When I set up the account, maybe I have an up-to-date certificate, the SSL certificate, right? Maybe it's robust or enterprise level, maybe not, right? And then, but after I get the account approved, if I don't maintain a high level of security, guess what's going to happen? A lot of those transactions coming through my site, unfortunately, are going to be more vulnerable because, I did everything possible to get the application approved, but then I started exercising certain ways of operating that weren't as professional, weren't as robust as they could have been. So I think there needs to be ongoing communication, and we need to have maybe random checks, maybe some, I don't know, but there's got to be ongoing communication because I deal with a company called Elevon. They only handle all of the credit card transactions for Costco, which is, saying a little bit, but and you would think that they would have very secure protocols and methods and best practices and everything. But I can tell you, I have to do a lot of work myself just to make absolutely sure, because see, this is what happens, you guys. The banks pretty much dictate to the merchant processors in terms of what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. Okay, the merchant processors really don't want to lose that business. Okay, because if you don't do what I say as a processor, and I'm the big credit card issuer, I'm the big Bank of America, whoever I am. If you don't do exactly what I say, then you don't get to process the credit cards for my companies, right? For my company. So what ends up happening is you look the other way, you do whatever to maintain that business with the card issuer, with the bank. But it's not necessarily me you looking out for the merchants to make sure that all these merchants are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, because guess what happened? You already got the application, you already got the fees, you already opened up the account. So now you're just hoping that they send as much business to you as possible. So unfortunately, we need to be more proactive. We need to be more responsible and hold everyone accountable, not only the processors, but the banks as well. And in addition to what me and Brandon are doing, telling the customers, is your operating system up to date? Is your browser up to date? Do you have antivirus software? What about your firewall? What about your password? Right. What do you think about some of those things?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you got to look at, and we were talking a lot more just over the last couple of minutes, we've been talking more on the merchant side, just because what happens is, I mean, when we're looking at the merchant, they're responsible for the whole purchasing process in the sense of how the money is transferred and how the encryption and the engagement from the consumer, from the all the way to the bank, you know, how people are getting money. So we're talking about on that level. But now we're talking about on the user level, right? The consumer themselves, for sure, they need to have, you know, a form of level of encryption, you know, internet security. They need to have antivirus. They need to know what site they're going to is not going to cause viruses on their system, and have a good up-to-date antivirus definition. You know, so if it's McAfee, it's Symantec, it's Kaspersky, whatever that may be, you're using a good antivirus software that's up to date. So as you're surfing online, if it catches anything, it helps to protect you. And then you look at, like, you know, if people have firewall set up, making sure the firewall set up properly, that, you know, it can catch any, you know, potential threats. So, I mean, those things are extremely important when the people are going online and shopping. And then, again, like we're talking about, doing the reviews before you go to that link. Review the site, review the information before you click on it, because it might be a site that, you know, is in Japan and in Russia or whatever, might have not have the right extension. So you're kind of like, oh, you know, it should be fine. I got recommended from a friend. No, and you have to, and that's why we have to do the research as consumers. And I got a little bit of a checklist here, Monty, and I'm just going to kind of quickly go through it. So we talked about doing the research online. You know, what information should you provide? So, Monty, when you're going shopping here, what information should you provide as a consumer?
You should not provide your social security number. Okay. Right. If anybody asks you for your social security number, hang up the phone immediately. Mm-hmm. Okay. And before I forget, I want to throw out a new term. The cyber literacy word for today, you guys, is going to be smishing. That's SMISHING. Okay. I want you to look up, familiarize, share that term. That has everything to do with me as a hacker, as a crook, sending you a text message, getting you to click on it because I'm pretending to be Wells Fargo or Bank of America, and I'm telling you got to update your account information right away before we close your account. So getting back to some of the things that I do, that, you know, in terms of what I'm submitting, I only submit a minimal amount of information. Okay, I believe in as little information as possible. So in other words, if you're a new retailer and I want to do business with you, I want to look for PayPal. Okay, I want to look for some service where I don't have to give you my credit card at all. So if you have PayPal, if you have Google Wallet, or if you have some other service where I can just set up my link my accounts, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use that account so I don't have to give you my credit card. Now, if worse comes to worse, and I give you my credit card, then I will. But it's after, like Brandon said, it's after I've done the reviews, the checking of the reviews. I'm looking for contact information on your website. Do you have a phone number? Do you have actual people that I can talk to? I want to find out, are you in Russia? Or are you in some other obscure country where I'm going to have a big problem reaching you? So what about your privacy policy? What about your return policy? Because, you know, that's going to tell me a whole lot about what's going to happen after the fact. And how you handle my information. Those are just a few of the things that I look at, Brandon.
So one of the things I would recommend is, and just kind of going back through the list here I have, is, you know, your name and your first name and last name. That's fine. You can put that on the site. You're creating an account, like I talked to before, having a secure username and password that's only specific for that account. And then your purchasing method and maybe even mailing address if you're having something shipped out. And that's it. So you're purchasing, and what I recommend is the only two forms I'd really recommend you start off if you're doing online shopping is some sort of e-commerce solution like PayPal, Square, something along that line that has a security, you know, level of security in between the merchant and yourself that's going to protect you. like Visa has a purchasing security as well. So using those methods that we talked about, and that's it. You shouldn't be providing any more information other than that. The next we look at is, how do you know if a website is safe, right? So Monty, like when we're going through website shopping, I'm a consumer. How do I know it's safe? I might go to a Best Buy, website. What would you say to people need to look for to make sure it's safe?
Well, let's take a look at the offline analogy. Okay, sometimes you have stores that are online that also have an offline presence as well. So keep in mind that you can call the phone number again and try and find out whether or not you can actually get someone on the phone. But yeah, click on that lock in the upper left-hand corner of that browser, okay? If that lock looks like it's green and it starts with HTTPS as in Sam, more than likely you're in a secure environment, okay? That means you more than likely can go ahead and do e-commerce and rest assured that this website is legitimate. And then also look for some of the, I'll let Brandon explain to you guys in terms of who some of the prominent players are in the industry, but look for certain companies that are securing that website. There's some major names out there. Was it VeriSign and
VeriSign's one of the big, VeriSign's one of the bigger ones.
Komodo, Thought. Look for those certificates. Look for verified by, for instance, and click on that certificate. And sometimes it can be intimidating in terms of what you're looking at, but click on it and start to familiarize yourself. What does these certificates look like, or what does the authentication information look like, and talk to Brandon about what you're looking at and how to tell what's important, what's not important, and make sure, because not every encryption level of a browser is sufficient for a major e-commerce, for instance. Mm-hmm. So talk to him about, what are some of the minimum standards that we need to deploy as merchants in order to make sure my shopping experience is nice and safe and secure, because, having a low level security is one thing, and having the highest grade bank level security is quite another different thing. And make sure you got good contact information, again, on that side, prominently displayed. I don't want to have to drill down too far and spend an hour and a half looking for contact information and such.
Exactly. I mean, like we talked about, level of encryption, perfect, Monty. Make sure you have purchasing insurance, right? Before you go out, how do you know the website's safe? Well, the way to protect yourself is to do the due diligence up front for yourself to make sure you have purchasing insurance or some sort of level of protection to make sure before you start going out there. What's the e-commerce solution? Sometimes you can find out by understanding when you click through a bit to see if they're using PayPal, they're using, a merchant account. What are they using? So that is a level of encryption and security that they're using. So that, oh yes, they're using, some sort of bank's merchant's account. Okay, I know it's a little bit more secure because they're using that. Perfect. If it's John Doe's, merchant account and you've never heard of it, never seen it, you might be a little bit worried because it might be something they've just set up, or it's a new system out there that might not be secure. So doing that research for yourself.
Let me ask you a question before I forget, Brandon. What do you think about credit reporting agencies? Do you think we're doing enough to monitor our credit? Because everyone is giving out when companies get hacked into whatever, they say, oh yeah, we're going to give you free credit monitoring. Do you think we're doing enough as far as signing up for those services and getting those reports and checking them? And also alerts, different alerts that we can put on our credit cards and our accounts, right? To determine whether or not there's a problem. What do you think about some of those things?
I think, for what we're looking at purchasing the website, yes, we need to have a logging system. And for sure, what people find, and this is kind of a generic, comment, is that people are trying to look at convenience. They don't want to have to go through logs. They don't want to have to do that. They want to go, they want to purchase, and they want to receive their product as soon as they can in their hand. And they'd be like, yes, I've got it. I've got this device. Oh, yay. They don't want to go, oh, by the way, I need to go check my credit report. I need to go check my logs to see what I'm purchasing this week. They're like, no, that's too much work. And this is why they need to have systems set up to one, like Nicholas was saying, maybe have alerts that, when their bank account gets too low too. Having the reports done, and something that I'd recommend is you do auditing on any type of your business or your growth. You do auditing on yourself. Right? You got to do audit on your credit and see how things are going. If you have a good credit score and it's maintaining and there's no compromises, you might want to do it once a month or once every quarter. Right? And then if you're purchasing more online, you want to do it more frequently. If you're one of those people that don't purchase much online and not doing a lot of online activity, you might have to do that maybe every 6 months to 1 year, right? And less frequently. But again, having these auditing logs and tracking to see what's going on depending on your activity. Right? It's like any activity. The more you do, the more you have to, analyze your results. Right? You have to analyze, are you having benefits or are you having some sort of negative results? So if you're auditing, you can see that right away. If you leave it for a few months, 6 months, you can get caught that, oh my God, I never knew I got compromised.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. Okay, so there's a certain time frame that I have to make sure that I don't exceed certain time frames when I'm shopping as compared to when I actually report that transaction that went bad also, right? So that's another reason why I should be that I should make sure that I'm paying attention and reporting this stuff and monitoring it, right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, certain banks, certain companies have a time of reporting. I mean, you can't have a compromise in January of 2014 and report in January 2016. They're like, okay, well, that's too late. It's out of the scope, right? You should have reported that at least within 14 to 30 days of that, incident, because what happens is, they understand if you're on vacation, you're away, they give you a little bit of a window, but I mean, you need to report it as soon as possible if you get compromised. And that's what comes back down to the monitoring. If you're monitoring your bank accounts, your transactions properly, you should be able to see it, instantly within that week, minimum, to say, if you do banking, say every Friday, and I won't tell people to do it on a specific day, but keep it sporadic. But if you do a banking specifically on one day that you're checking your reports, you're looking at your bank history, you're looking at your bank receipts and all that. If you see that and you do that weekly, you're going to see that there might be a fluctuation. If you monitor your finances properly, you're going to see when things go up and when things go down. And if there's a spike either way, then okay, hold on, what happened? It's the other thing, even this way, it's as bad as if you receive too much money. Some people might think, oh, that's a great thing. I received an extra $1,000, an extra $5,000. Yeah, but you got to look at what's happening to the account. Someone compromised it some way. So if they're putting money in your account, which is kind of a weird thing to say at this point, because most people think, yeah, so what? I got an extra $5,000, right? Woo! Yeah. But you got to look at, your account has been compromised, right? Either way, up or down. So if you're getting too much money, or money is taken out, you still have to be aware of that, because again, the bank will come after you, right? And then it could be a criminal activity that you don't know about, that they're transferring money from your account, using that as a leverage point to transfer and go to another account overseas. And you've just been like a hop through that transaction.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Good point.
So
can you say anything about, I'm sorry, Brandy, can you say anything about credit freezes? Why would anybody take a look at or want to implement credit freezes?
So again, you're looking at, in my understanding of credit freezes is that you're looking at if a transaction's happening or, unauthorized activity, that they freeze everything right away. So there's no activity. Banks do it, are really good at it, how they're monitoring a lot of, transactions through your debit, your checking account, your Visa, where they see, maybe your transactions through the week is, $100 here, $50 here, and all of a sudden they see $1,000. Right? They'll shut down the account so there's no transaction to make sure that you don't get compromised anymore. Right? And that's why it's really good in that sense. That's why I'm saying do the due diligence of calling your credit card company, saying, hey, you know what? I want these in place. Or are they in place under my credit card? Because some credit cards might not have it, some of your shopping methods. And you might want to have it so that you say, look, you know what? I want you to make sure that you do audit my card. You are monitoring it. And then what happens is then there's a level of security. So I believe that there are great, levels, implementations of different security methods that people need to put in place, but you need to be due diligent and do it. Where people say, oh, yeah, I just assume they do it. And then if you find out they don't, now you go back and now you have to go and debate with the credit card company. Well, how do I rectify the situation? How do I go back? But if you do the due diligence ahead of time, before you start going out and purchasing, or if you're purchasing now, you do it this week and go out and start having a conversation, at least now you have a level of protection. There's a level of security. And the more levels of security you have, the harder it is for the hackers to compromise you.
Exactly. Lastly, because I think Brandon may want to wrap this up. Make sure you guys understand that we're doing a lot of shopping and different things with our mobile devices. Okay, that's a potential problem. It's very convenient, it's easy to use, and all that. But that's where the hackers and the fraudsters are targeting. So make absolutely sure that your respective device or devices have the latest operating systems, any antivirus, any software updates that they need. Don't ignore those warnings. We all, can see the little red flags or whatever comes up on your device that says, I got a new operating system update or new apps need to be downloaded. Don't just ignore that. Make sure that when you see those alerts or whatever notification that you get, that you pay attention, because maybe the manufacturer or whoever is telling you, this is something that you need to put on your device immediately, because these patches come out, believe it or not. And if we ignore them, then that could be a potential problem right there. So make sure you pay attention to that.
Oh, exactly. So last point I'm going to go through is, what do you do when you get compromised? What do you do if you get compromised? How do you kind of go through this process? Because if you get compromised, a lot of people are going to go, oh, who do I call? They call their Visa, they call their MasterCard, they call their bank. But actually what you're supposed to do, and here's the steps. First, you're supposed to call the police. Call the police and report that there's been a compromise. And what I recommend is, before you start to kind of do the reporting, you get a notepad, you create a new document, and you create a log of all the activities that you do. So what happens is, you first and foremost call the police, file a report, get the report number and log that in. I called and I spoke to detective, such and such, John Doe. Here's the report number, and ask them that if you can have a copy of that report. Second, then now contact your bank, right? Or the merchant or whoever you're purchasing through, or who you're doing your banking or financing through. Contact them. Tell them that, yes, you've been compromised. Here's the report number from the police report that you've reported. You filed with the police. Log that, who the agent you talked to, what time, what date, all the information. Have a reference number that, they provide you. Then next, follow up with the incident. Don't let it go, because now you filed it. Follow up until completion. And as you're following up, log those incidents. On Tuesday at 10 o'clock, spoke to John Doe. They are still investigating. They'll get back to me in 1 week. Thursday, 2 weeks later. Keep logging until it's completed, because what you want to do is you want to have a trail of all the information that you're collecting and you're going through the incident, so you make sure it is actually being action. And what happens is, now you can see where it might be falling through too, because I know a lot of people kind of go, oh, well, I didn't know, I thought the bank was dealing with it, and they let the bank take responsibility. You're in control of your finances, you're in control of your credit rating, you're in control of that. You take control and do this due diligently. And what happens, you'll find that you'll be able to resolve the situation quicker, because you're going to be on top of them. No, I need this resolved. I need you to, reimburse me the money. I don't want my credit affected. I don't want this. And you'll solve you'll kind of help yourself to resolve any problems you have for the future. What do you think, Monty?
I think you guys have a wealth of information to sort through and digest as usual. Hopefully I'm not being immodest, but look, I want you guys to understand, an hour goes by very fast. We're trying to cover a lot of different critical areas. We talk about mobile devices, we talk about browsers, we talk about reputation, ratings, reviews, we talk about interactions with, the processors and versus the banks and all that. So there's a lot of, as usual, there's a lot of different areas that we could talk about separately, and that could be almost a show by itself. Okay. But the idea is to make sure that, you review it and take a look at some specific areas that apply to you, that you can implement immediately. Because what it comes down to is not so much looking at the blab and then going on with our daily lives. The idea is take something from the blab session and saying, look, okay, maybe the operating systems on my computers need to be updated. Maybe my browser is out to date. Maybe I've been using some version of Firefox IE or Chrome or whatever, and it hasn't been updated in a long, long time. Maybe my hardware and some things that I use in my office or my home, maybe those things are getting so old that I can't put anything new on them, for far as making sure that I have updated security. So yeah, let's take a look at our personal lives or our business or whatever, and trying to see if there's something specifically that we can take a look at, where we're taking it from the show and implement it immediately, because what it comes down to is what can we do immediately and change right now, so that we can say, okay, I'm doing something different right now, and hopefully, we'll all be another person or one less person that has to report a problem.
Exactly. And this is the thing that I recommend. Speed of implementation, all the information that we provided, go back through this video. We're going to actually have a recording of it, so you can go back through it time and time again, right? You go on KNSS Consulting on the blog. There's going to be all these recordings are going to be there, so you can go back through all the history, like Monty was saying before. Go back through it. Make notes. Make notes for yourself, make notes for your friends, your colleagues, your business partners, and start talking about it. And if they have any questions, have them contact Monty or myself. Because again, the problem what we find with security right now is a lack of information education that's being out there that people are grabbing onto and implementing. And that's why we're doing this show, these episodes, is to give you the information so that you can start to implement, you can start to share. Because when it comes to security, you might have the best security practices, the best security policy, but it might be someone that that is your weakest link in your security practices. And they can compromise your security. And you might not know it. And you might think, it's your mom, it's your cousin, it's your sister, it's your husband, it's your child, it's your business partner, it's, client, whatever that may be. All the people in your network need to start looking at security because they could compromise your security. So Monty, I think next week, this is what I'm excited about, encryption. Let's talk about encryption next week. Because one of the conversations I had at the Microsoft store where people were even asking about encryption. How do I encrypt it? What do I do? What's encryption all about? How do I encrypt the data on my phone? Right, so I can transfer. So I think next week, I love to cover encryption, what it is, how to use it, and how to use it from your browser to your mobile device. What do you think?
I think that's excellent because this gets more into the field where I'm in, you guys. We do physical security, and we want to make sure that your person, your house, cars, et cetera, are safe. And in addition to when you put encryption on a mobile device, for instance, you're making absolutely sure that you can communicate effectively. And a lot of our customers, they want to have communications, right? Because if I have a customer who's like corporate America or a government agency or something, they want to communicate back and forth with their peers. They got to make sure that conversation is highly secure. So yeah, this really gets into the area of my own expertise. And I can't say enough about encryption because believe it or not, you guys, once upon a time you had to be a computer geek in order to use encryption, implement it, and take advantage of it. But right now, we have a lot of companies that are pushing encryption out there to us, and they're saying, you guys use it. Put it on your phones, put it on your laptops, desktops, et cetera, and take advantage of it. But we're not doing as much as consumers in terms of taking advantage of the ease of use, because that's what we're getting to. We're getting to the point where encryption is basically behind the scenes, but we have to implement it. So yeah, this is going to be a very critical area. And I suggest you guys bring a friend, relative, enemy, associate, anybody to the next session, because when we start talking about encryption, you're going to want to hear this.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, guys, I hope you have a great week, because this is Tuesday. You still have, 3 more days of the week and then a great weekend. So I hope you have a great week. If you have any questions, you can contact Monty at MontyHenry1 on Twitter, or you can contact me at Brandon Krieger, or you can go to my website at knssconsulting.com. We're here to provide any support that you need when it comes to cybersecurity. So I hope you guys have a great week.